east over 2 more blocks to where we're located here. And then really, we can look at the timeline, but maybe we can cover one other thing as well. So we're looking at Friday, April 29th and Saturday, May 1st. One thing I do want to mention that I forgot to would be 500 people per day. And those runners are run in waves of 50. And so not at any given time, anywhere on our course, will we have more than 50 people. At this point in time, we do have approval from UDOT and Heber City and the U.S. Forest Service, because we're up there on their land where we begin, and then UHP, and then this morning we got approval from the Wasatch County Health Department just to continue to maintain whatever protocols are in place. Now, we submitted a plan that is according to the current protocols, which is less than 50 people. And we understand that if things have to get stricter down the line in May, I think we all hope it's going to go the other way. But if it does get stricter, we will adhere to any guidelines, even if it came to the point where we have to cancel the event. We will not put ourselves, our runners, or the communities that we run through in any sort of danger or against any guidelines that are currently out there, okay? So I do want you to be aware of that. So what we would have is Thursday, and really where we have the race ending right now, if you go to that second page, you can see that I just really have it directly east here. That's
The church parking lot?
Right there.
No, actually, it would end right here on the, right there, okay? Now, I don't know if that is easier for you, or if you look at that map, as we come around, if we take a left on 3400 South and finish over by the town park, that is also an option. I really come to you and say, whatever is most convenient for you, we are certainly able to adjust the route one way or the other, because it's really a block and a half north here, or it's a block and a half back west near the park. So I leave that to you.
So you won't be having, at the finish here, you won't be having more than 50 people, you'll just be,
Correct.
little ceremonies that you'll just be moving
Correct,
around.
yes, so the way we did it in Las Vegas and how we have them all set up is, they wear a mask when they get on the bus, and I've got a whole COVID operations plan I'm happy to send to all of you so you can see what protocols we take. We take their temperature, and then when they get on the bus, it's every other seat, every other row. And when we get them up to the start line, they continue to have the mask on. And then we actually have a garbage can right by the start line. And we start them every 15 seconds, and they can discard their mask at that point, and they can run the entire race without a mask. And then the first thing that they receive when they cross the finish line is another mask. Our whole staff wears them the entire time. We only have one person. We have 10 aid stations along the course. 2 which will be within your city limits. You'll see I and J on that map. Those are 2 aid stations, and those are only manned by one person, and that one person has a mask on, and opposed to them handing a cup of water or a cup of sports drink to that person, the runner is required to pick it up themselves. So the amount of touching across is very, very limited. And so, and then once they come across the finish line, they get a mask, opposed to us putting a medal around their neck. We have them set on the table. They grab it themselves, and then all food at that point is prepackaged. So there isn't a large table of bagels or anything like that. It's bottled water, a prepackaged meal, and then from there, we understand that they would like to probably cool down a little bit, but according to what was approved by the health department this morning, we can never have more than 50 people there at the finish line, and there are also no spectators allowed as well. So we are very confident that we keep the guidelines that have been set in place by the health department, that there will never be 50 people. And again, the way we run it, we actually start them off the hill according to when they think they will finish. So we never have a big cluster of people all finishing at once, because we do it in waves of 50 every 30 minutes, starting at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
That's how we can spread it out across the entire morning.
So where do you gather people to begin the?
So that we have, and maybe one of you may know it, our hope is to be able to use this LDS church parking lot right here. And if that is not available, we'll find a private landowner somewhere close by that we could hopefully park in their field. And then according to when they start the race, like those folks who start the race at 6 a.m., they are required to be at the parking lot at 5 a.m. in the morning. We load them at 5:10, send them up the hill. They have about 20 minutes up top, and then we send them down. And so, according to what wave you are in, that is when you are allowed to come and board the bus. So the buses, whether it's here, I'm sorry, I keep getting turned around, here at the church, you can tell us which road is ideal. There'll be coaches just lined up, and they'll just go one at a time to take people up the hill.
So you have 500 people for the day, but they don't all show up at the same time.
Correct.
So
Correct.
somewhere in the middle of the day you have, they don't finish before other groups come, though, right?
Correct, yes, yes. So
So you potentially could have a couple hundred cars parked there or something.
Yes, yes. What will happen is the parking lot would be full by the time we're done loading buses for the morning, but they're all coming in groups of 50. And sometimes it's even less cars than that if you've got like a husband and a wife running or something like that.
Once they finish, then they're required to get in their car and leave.
That is correct. Yes.
I mean, we just that parking lot hold.
We counted the spaces, and I think it's just a little over 200. And so there would probably be some street parking. The question is where that would be, whether we want to put some over at the park, if we could use the parking spots out front of the town hall here. But that was our initial thought.
My boys and I did the Salt and Sing in September, which is a bike race from Immigration Canyon to Site and St. George. It was handled very much the same way, and it seemed like it worked pretty good.
I know there's a newer charter school not too far away,
Yeah.
right? And so we will reach out to these different locations to make sure we have ample parking for all of our runners.
You say the troopers have signed off on this?
The troopers have signed off on it as well as UDOT, yes.
So are you guys gonna mark off half a lane coming down the canyon, or?
No, we are just strictly in the shoulder, but we have barrels down the entire highway. Now, one question I have for you folks, as we come into the city, the different places where I have marked that we may have course marshals, those would be simply volunteers, or if you are more comfortable, are you covered by Wasatch County Sheriff?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And so that is one discussion that we still need to have with them, once we receive your approval, and you tell us how you would like these different intersections that runners pass by, if we need a police officer there, or simply a course marshal who can help get the runner from one side of the road to the next. And that only happens in a couple of different instances. You tell me.
You're gonna have to talk to the troopers on the major highways?
Yes.
They're the ones that'll tell you if you have to have a marshal or a trooper?
Even when we come into your city limits?
On our city, you'll have to talk to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Because now you're looking at blocking roads or stuff like that.
Right,
So you'll
yeah.
have to talk to the sheriff.
We have,
And, yeah, and they'll tell you whether you need deputies or just whatever you have.
yeah, we have, on Highway 40, we have UHP officers, and then also on Highway 189, we also have UHP officers there. And so it really, when you look at the timeline, we would set up starting at 9 a.m. The question I had, whether we set up here next to the town hall or over by the park, at least half of that road would need to be closed off because we construct a large metal arch that
Oh.
is weighted down, but because it is over 2 days, it would need to stay in place overnight. And so we would just simply we would like to know from you if that is all right, and if so,
Well, I
which-
think that would have to be the sheriff's office that okayed that too.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I think we
Well,
would
if
say,
they put an arch over the road, the best place to put it would be that road over on
Yeah.
the east side of the park.
yeah. I think that the best thing to do is to have them go to the park.
That's what I think too.
I think that would be the best way.
Yeah,
And then they can park clear around the park, inside the park,
Yeah.
wherever they need to,
We-
just as long as they're not on the grass. And, I think that would probably work better to
Okay.
end it there.
yeah. Great.
I mean,
Would the
just-
restrooms be open by then?
Would
They're
open the
gonna have
restrooms,
porta
yeah.
potties.
They're gonna, yeah, they're gonna have to. have
Oh, they
porta
have to
We
have
will bring in
potties.
porta potties,
Okay.
and
yeah.
those are serviced each day.
Okay,
Also on the map where you have that aid station I and J, we do put a porta potty at each aid station. But
Okay.
because we will only have 50 people at any given time, we will only have 5 porta potties at the park. So if the park restrooms are open as well, great. If not, we've got that covered.
okay. All right.
I saw on here you have cleanup on the second day.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually mean?
So cleanup is we are very small, we're a team of 9, and then we have some part-time folks who come in as our crew. So we will have about 15 of us who will be here. We construct the arch, we put everything up, we'll have some tents as well to cover the food and the metals and everything. And so as far as cleanup, we will want to put one dumpster, and you can tell us where that would be put. That would be brought in and then taken away. But everything that we set up, we also take down.
Okay, I'm talking about during the running path, the garbage that's discarded on.
Yes, yes. So after each day, we actually have a truck that drives the entire course and picks up trash along the entire way. So every little piece.
Cups and all that.
Cups, sometimes people will wear throwaway gloves.
Their goo,
Yeah.
all their stuff.
Goo wrappers, energy gel wrappers, all of that.
Yeah.
We always leave it better than we found it. And so, yeah, that timeline is Thursday, we would spend the majority of that day setting up. And then Friday, again, runners arrive at 5 a.m. Our last runner is usually done by 2:30. Then we would leave that arch up and a few tents Friday night, so we're ready to go Saturday. And then once all the runners come through on Saturday, and that's over, we take everything down.
Do you have someone planned to watch your arch and your tents?
Yes, we do, yeah. Actually, our owner, we have all of our timing equipment set up inside the arch as well, and he actually sleeps at the finish line in an RV,
Yeah.
just
We
because
just don't
he's
want to be
there.
liable for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think we wanna be liable, but it sounds to me like you've got it covered pretty well.
And speaking of liability, we cannot ever do an event without insurance as well. And so, if you'd like us to put you on that insurance policy,
We'd love it.
Yeah,
that's what.
We would require you to be
Yeah.
named
Right,
as
yeah,
additionally assured.
That's what we figured. We have to do that with every other entity as
So
well.
just, get us a copy of that.
Okay?
And questions from the board? What do you think?
You guys will be furnishing flyers and information to the,
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. Whether you want a flyer that's mailed to every single one of your residents, or a newsletter that you send out in an email, we're happy to give you a copy for the email.
Please.
But if you want something sent out, in the mail, we are happy to do that.
do you guys put up the road signs also?
Yes, UDOT requires us,
Yeah.
yes.
Race coming on this date,
Correct.
runners on the roadway.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, whatever you would like within your city limits, you let us know what you would like. We'll have a message board at both ends, up above Daniel Summit and then down below, and those will be in place a week before the event. And then we'll also use the message board on 189 as well to let people know that it will be occurring. And so that would be one other question as far as traffic control plan within your city limits. Because your residential roads are pretty wide, we would just have the runners keep the rules of the road, which will be on the left hand running against traffic. Now, we've got those barrels down Highway 40. I don't know if you would want candlestick cones or anything along your roads that you think would be better, just to draw attention to the fact that there are runners on the road, whether it's candlesticks every 500 feet with an occasional sign that says runners on the road.
I think that.
And you guys are gonna mark out the roadway too?
What do you mean by mark out the roadway?
Well, your route up here goes up by Winterton Farms.
Okay.
You'll lose some runners up there if you don't have someone pointing them in the right
Oh,
direction.
yes, so at every turn, you would have a course marshal, yeah. And not only a course marshal, but we will put up a big sign that says turn left.
Okay.
We've got a bunch of A-frames that we will be putting up at any turn, yeah.
As smooth as that road is, they should run on it, just to enjoy it. Because,
I've had to go track down some runners in races before.
really?
But yeah,
They got lost?
yeah, when they did Ragnar, they went up the wrong way up Cascade.
Oh,
So, I go find them.
And I can't recall if I mentioned, but this is something that is just a one-time event.
It's,
Yeah, we won't be coming back year after year after year unless you want us or the demand from our runners is high. But our hope is that this is something that we're able to put on to kind of continue to get us through what we're going through. Because our races, we usually have anywhere from 3,000 to 7,000 people.
yeah.
And so this is just something that we're doing in the interim until
We can
things
get
get back to normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody have any suggestions? Travis, do you see any problems?
No, the only thing I would comment is that, that the route be marked, through town.
Yep.
With the candlesticks or whatever, I think that's all we
Okay.
really need.
Okay.
The only other thing besides that is the roadways have to be approved by troopers and sheriff's office because you're shutting
Yes.
them down.
Yeah. Which you'll do.
Which we will do, yep. We will take care of.
He has to go turn paperwork in, I have to approve it.
You know, my question was, following the guidelines, it sounds, you talked to the health department.
Yes,
And for me, if they've got the health department's approval, the sheriff department approval,
UDOT's, they've got.
UDOT, I think people are looking for anything in the world that they can do
Right.
to try and feel like their life is still active, so
yes,
I would support it, I don't have a problem with it,
Great.
as long as we follow all the guidelines.
right.
When you say you have the approval, you have the forms filled out and returned, or?
Forms are all filled out, so I've spoken with all those entities within the last week. And so, I don't know if any of you know Jim Wynn, he's the UDOT over Region 3 here. I had a couple of conversations with him just on Monday and said, so are we good to go? We went through all the different protocols, the traffic control plans, the UHP. So everything, he's given me the head nod. I've just gone to all these different entities to make sure we have approval from everyone. And then, once we do, then we'll submit the formal plan. And once that formal plan is officially approved, I'm happy to share all that with you
Yes,
folks.
we would like
We
to
will,
see
we will keep you updated with every single thing that comes through.
Where will the half marathon start?
The half marathon starts, it's actually at, if you go up Highway 40, there's a little sign that says 7200 South. There's a home up there, and it's owned by Rex Harrison, who owns Gunny's in Orem.
It's where they had the Whiskey Springs fire,
Yeah.
that big cabin, it's right
Oh,
there.
Yeah.
And so I got him on the phone also on Monday, and he is approved to let buses pull to the side of Highway 40. We are not actually gonna go up on his property, but he's allowing his gate to be open. We're gonna set up some porta potties inside on his property, just to keep people off the road until we start them down the highway.
Okay. All right.
Sounds like you've done a lot of work.
Yeah, but this is what is required, and we want to make sure everybody who is involved is aware and that we have their approval, we have their blessing to go forward with this. And as I mentioned, as all these approvals come through, or if something comes up as we get closer to the race and we are unable to put it on, we would obviously let you know about that as well.
Do we need a motion for that, or can we just approve that? Doesn't say
I
on
think he
the,
just has it, we get
Just
to
finalize
finalize.
You guys have a good website, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Good website, yeah.
I don't know that you need a motion, I think you just a good head.
if we just talk amongst ourselves and decide it's
Just
okay,
tell him.
everybody
Yeah.
okay with
Yeah,
it?
he just has to get all his paperwork. and-
I know that, Scott told me he was okay with it, so.
Is there any paperwork I need to fill out with your
Well, we're gonna
signature?
talk about that in just a minute after we get through.
Great, great.
So, yeah, it's an okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Just keep us informed on what's gonna happen and what's going on. And then we will move on. I'd like you to stay for this next portion
I'm happy to stay as
too,
long as you'd like me to.
and, see if, what we decide here. Okay, move on to liability waiver for special events. Okay.
That other form, you'll need to talk to Josh Crowe at the sheriff's office.
Thank you.
That's who you'll be in contact with.
Thank you.
So, we're moving on. We got this policy and procedure from Midway. Have you guys had time to look at it and see what you think of it? Is there something, do you want to do something like that? Do we just want to give verbal approval to these kind of things?
I'd say we start filling out a form.
Okay,
It's
so,
just getting to that point nowadays. Too much
okay,
liability.
yeah, I think so too, but I think that we need to.
If you want me to, did you ever find if Midway had a?
Karen, did you ever talk to me?
If you got a Word copy of this,
Yeah,
because we
If we get a
just
Word
went
copy
through a
of
great
this-
big process.
Yeah.
These are issued under my department down in South Georgia.
yeah.
And I could probably tweak this and.
I think that we should have,
But
yeah.
it's a good place to start, and if we have a Word, that would save
right,
a ton of work.
right. So I think that this is a good document to have and to have for events.
And I've looked at it, it's pretty thorough.
It's thorough, it's,
You just change a
does
few
everything we
things
want, we know exactly
for us.
what's gonna happen. I'm gonna give him a copy of this tonight to look at.
Great.
So you'll have it, and then,
Probably just a few tweaks that need to be
Yeah,
made.
once you have it finalized, if
then Karen
can
can
email it over.
email it over to you, and when we have the final one. So I think we'll let Brian go ahead and work on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's get that done.
And then I know there will be a fee in regards to reserving the park for those few days. And so you just need to let me know what that fee will be and when that is due as
That's what
well.
our normal fee is.
Yeah, it's, I think we should just do normal fee. What do you guys think? So normal fee is, park.
I guess that would depend on whether you want just the park or the park and the pavilion.
We would probably, it'd probably be the easiest if we just
Took the whole thing.
took the whole thing. Yep.
Is Brooksy, I assume it's not a 501(c), is it?
It is not.
Okay.
It is not. Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be $100 a day.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Well, your non-residents.
Well, I know what the non-resident is, but, yeah, I think
I
it,
just have that and then have a form in there for cleanup and that.
yeah,
It's not taken
yeah,
care
as
of.
long as they're gonna, as long as you clean it up and take care of it, it'll be $100 a day.
Okay,
If not, we'll charge cleanup fee,
okay,
okay?
that's fair.
Okay, so,
Travis is very expensive.
yeah. Okay,
And going forward, is it best just to email Karen the
Yes.
different information and whether it's in regards to the park or
Yes.
some logistical question, she'll point
and
that email in
she'll
the right
get it
way?
on to the rest of us.
Great.
Okay,
And remind me again, who's the gentleman at the county
It'll
secretary?
be Josh Crowe.
okay. So,
P-R-O-S-T.
P-R-O-D-S-T.
Thank you so much.
Make sure it's Crowe, because we have a Josh Crowe post also.
Okay.
normally it is $500, but I'm just thinking because of what it is. Well, it's up to you guys. You guys say what you wanna charge.
I'm okay with $100, I think, a day, kind of thing. I mean, I think,
This is in May?
This will be Friday, April 30th, and Saturday, May 1st.
Okay, we will need a deposit of 200 that you'll get back if everything's done.
Great?
And then,
And then again, email newsletter or an actual postcard mail to your residents? Which one would you prefer, or both?
I think a postcard mail to our residents would be good.
Okay,
yeah, only about half our town's getting emails.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
great.
so,
So I'll just need that, we usually like to send that a few weeks before the event
Okay.
occurs. And, you know, whether we use, you know, somebody who processes those postcards, and then you can just send your mailing list directly to them, so we don't have to see
Okay.
that. That's probably the easiest thing to do for that direct mailer.
all right, so are you guys, we need a motion then. We need a motion to, oh, we don't need a
We
motion.
don't need a motion to.
We need a motion to accept the changes to the, unless you wanna wait and do that next month. For the liability waiver.
Let's get a copy of this.
Okay.
Let's
all right.
just wait on that, then we'll do the
Okay.
motion after.
So then we don't need that. We'll do that next month, Karen. The liability waiver. Next month, Karen.
Karen?
Next month, liability waiver. Okay. We'll do a,
Okay. Do a review of that.
all right. We got that took care of then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
We
much
really
for
appreciate
coming.
it. Absolutely, my
And-
pleasure.
Yeah, if you'd like to stay, would love to have you, but you don't need to.
Okay, okay.
I know you've got a ride home, so,
I appreciate it, all of you.
I have one question for you. I've
Please.
never heard of the marathon that's run downhill. That's my kind of marathon.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you
I-
have-
And the runners love them if they're Boston qualifiers down there.
So all of our events are Boston qualifiers, and this one will be as well. I think there's a misconception that definitely gravity is doing some of the work, but if you don't train your body properly, our event that comes down Big Cottonwood Canyon, we have to do a short out and back on Wasatch Boulevard before they head down into Cottonwood Heights City. And that's where people fall apart, because they have not trained their quads to take the pounding of all that downhill running. So really, it comes down to the first 16 miles of this course, before they turn off into Daniel, that's where they will get the majority of their downhill running. And so we'll see how they do over the last 10. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you folks again.
It's hard on
Thank
your
you.
lungs,
I appreciate it.
it's on your knees and legs.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
They're down, pounding.
okay, now we have a resolution for the meeting schedule for 2021. I didn't change anything on that. Do you want to change it to another night? You want to keep it where it's at? Is there any problems with where it's at?
Thursdays work good for me.
Thursdays work good for everybody? Okay,
Yeah,
We do need to fix, there's a spelling error
okay.
on land use of Pell, and it should be
What?
Just the word spelled on.
The appeal,
fourth line down.
I'm gonna get that now.
appeal?
Yeah, it should be appeal.
Okay, but we don't have to, oh, yeah, we did put that in there, the land use appeal attorney. Okay. All right, so we have Charleston Town Resolution 2021-01. Be it hereby resolved that Charleston Town Council hereby adopts the following meeting schedule for the year 2021. Town council meetings will be held on the first Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. The planning commission will be held on the fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. And the land use appeal attorney will meet as needed or as otherwise noticed. All meetings will be held at the meeting room of the Charleston Town Hall unless otherwise noticed and published is required. Okay? I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2021-01.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's been a motion by Vaughn, seconded by Jim to accept 2021-01 resolution. We'll have a roll call vote. Vaughn?
Aye.
Scott's not here. Darrell?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And aye. Okay. Motion carries. Karen, when you call in, we need to get out there that our hours are changed.
I'm on the phone.
No, well, not only on the phone, but in the, shouldn't we put
website.
something in a notice in the way that said our,
I don't think you
Does it
have to, but
matter?
it's probably a good courteous thing to do. Make sure that they're accurate on your website.
yeah, let's just make sure everything's accurate, our hours are up to date on the website, on all of that, so that we, okay? All right, next. We have a resolution to reappoint of the town recorder. Be it hereby resolved that Karen Mayer be reappointed Charleston Town Recorder effective January 7th, 2021.
So is this a reappointment
Yeah,
or
I
just
have
an
to do it every
appointment?
year.
Don't we have to
It says read
reappoint?
on it.
It says but this is your initial appointment, so it should say.
No, because we already
That's
done that. We
Oh,
already
okay,
done
okay,
a
that's-
resolution to
I-
So
approval.
this is just for this.
This
It's
is
just that we're close to the approval
It was
of
like
the
last
reapproval.
month.
Yeah, okay. I was actually, that's actually now my brain is working. Well, that's what, we went through that last month.
Yeah.
Right, so we're doing it again.
This is, okay. But you don't really have to reappoint every year.
Oh, I thought you had to.
No, you only have to reappoint after an election.
Oh,
So next year at the gym.
So really, you don't need to do these
okay, well,
because
let's
they
not
were
do them
appointed
then.
and those appointments go until the next election.
Okay, let's not do them then.
So,
So let's go on with the 2021,
Sorry, I didn't
23,
notice
and
that one.
2021, 24, we don't have to do them.
Who's the deputy treasurer?
Vaughn.
Vaughn?
Oh, it is, okay.
and that was appointed.
That
Yeah.
happened last month too.
So we don't have to do
Okay.
that one, or-
Sorry about that, I should have noticed that on the agenda.
That's okay. It was a rough week.
I was just figuring it was for the last.
It was the first of 2021 and it's not been good so far.
You're, like I said, you're gonna have to do it twice, every other year. You
Yeah.
should do it after an election.
Okay. All right, so now let's go on to our town council assignments. I left everybody where they were. I thought, sometimes it's hard every year to change positions, and you kind of know where you're going and what you want to do on your assignments for that year. And if we change them every year, then you don't get the chance to finish out and see what you're doing. So I've left you all the same. The interlocal meetings, I have assigned Scott Solomon to them. I haven't heard from him, so I guess he's okay. And that's only because I just don't have the time to attend it.
And
Okay?
we'll just change this one too.
So,
So how does Scott get the animal control job? That is a hell of a good job. You want that one? Heck, yeah.
It's good until it's
that's
not.
why I gave him, that's why I gave him interlocal meetings.
Ouch, so that comes with it?
Yep.
That comes with
Yeah,
it.
he can keep it.
Not so good now.
Okay.
So that job might not have been too good when we had 3 horses killed over on the bridge a few years ago.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
yeah,
Yeah, like I say, it's good until it isn't, and then it's really ugly.
yeah, then it can be bad.
I have a
Okay.
hard time controlling my dog anyway. I'm
Sorry,
probably not good for the job.
next to the kid next door.
Charleston Town Resolution 2021-05, title of Resolution Town Council Member Assignments for 2021. It is hereby resolved that the Charleston Town Council hereby adopts the attached list of town council assignments, see Section A, for the calendar year of 2021. I'll accept a motion. Everybody okay with their assignments?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh,
The MAG, and I'm an alternate for that, what is the MAG?
yeah. MAG happens every 3 months. If I can't go, then I'll call you and you can go.
MAG, like,
Mountain Lands Association.
MAG Land Association.
oh,
Their office is down on 8th North.
Yeah, and they have their meetings here, down on 8 North, they have them in Camas, they have them in Midway. So they rotate them. So, okay?
Mhm.
All right,
They give away money, they do,
yeah.
but it's hard to get.
They give us a lot of good information,
Yeah.
okay?
Do you want a motion now? or
Yeah, I need a
Everyone okay with the assignments? All right, I'll motion we accept the Charleston Town Resolution 2021-05.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Jim, seconded by Vaughn, that we accept the 2021-05. We can probably change that.
To 02.
Let's change that to 02,
02.
guys,
Just go ahead and have all those other ones. It'll be 02.
okay?
Keep it
That okay?
straight. Yep.
Yeah.
Is that okay with your motion?
Yep. Okay with my motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no, roll call. Vaughn?
Aye.
Darrell?
Aye.
Jim?
All right.
Brenda, aye. Okay. Boy, we're moving right through this, guys. Okay, now, every year we look at this fee schedule to see if we're up to par. Travis has been doing, the last week, we've had we've had a few burials this last week, and Travis has been looking into the other towns and what their prices are for burial lots. And he came to me and he said, you know, our burial lots are really, really low. So I'm gonna let him tell you what he found out. Travis?
Well, the reason I mention it is, I just got a notice in Heber City that they're raising all of their rates, and everything raised by about $200. I mean, I know it's happened for long before I was ever here, but I think with the rates being raised in Heber, as well as Midway, I think we'll probably see it a lot more where we have residents purchasing for out-of-town people because they don't want to pay the out-of-town rates. So it's just something, a concern that, I don't know if anyone else has any other opinions on it, but we did have one just this week that came in and purchased 4 burial plots. A resident that purchased them for an out-of-town person. So it's just, I'm sure it's happened for a lot of years, but I don't know what can really be done about it. But
So what happens in that case, if the resident comes and buys them for somebody else? Do they pay the resident fee or the non-resident fee?
They pay the rest.
well, they pay the resident fee, and then they pay a $25 fee to transfer them to the non-resident. Where the fees for a non-resident are several $100s more, so it's quite a savings of several $100s versus paying $25 to get it transferred.
Isn't that a straw purchase, coming in and buying a plot for somebody that doesn't live here?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Do we want to let that happen, or do we want to not to? Do we want to raise our prices? What do you guys want to do?
We could put wording in there, if that's being purchased and transferred to a non-resident, they gotta pay the difference between the resident and the non-resident fee.
At the time that the transfer happened.
Yeah.
So,
And then the transfer too, yeah.
and the transfer.
I mean,
But I'm saying,
I
if
think-
they did it a couple of years from now, and your fees go up, it wouldn't be at the time you purchased it, it'd be at the current.
Whatever it is at the
Yeah,
time they transfer it.
Yeah.
So
That
anyway,
would solve that problem.
So you're saying if they transfer it to somebody that's a non-resident, they pay that difference along with
Between, yeah,
the
up to the
fee?
current rate.
So it'd be the current difference, so if it happens in 10 years and they're more, then that's, they have to pay that difference.
That would solve it.
Do you have any idea what Midway and Heber City do?
I know Midway won't even allow anymore a non-resident to purchase in there. It's Midway residents only. They don't allow a non-resident to
So a
purchase.
non-resident can't even buy the plot?
No, no. And
What if a resident buys it and transfers it to a non-resident?
I don't know what they do on that situation. I don't know how they handle that. I'd have to look more into that.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're doing now, but I mean, some cities require, they just don't allow, they just say if you want it, they'll buy it back from you or something, and then they'll resell it to the public or to the residents or something. If you're
Okay,
trying to,
yeah.
if you're running out of lots or something, that's a good way to make sure they stay in the residents' hands.
And so Heber's, you know Heber's,
Yeah, I know Heber just went up to, for a resident, they went up to $1,200, and for a non-resident, they're $1,800.
That makes $700 for Charleston, a pretty good deal.
Which our non-resident fees are $980,
80.
so they're almost double what Heber is. And I'm not saying we have to go to that, but I just wanted to address the problem of the residents purchasing for non-residents.
Okay, so I think the board agrees that we should not let that happen. We should not let a resident purchase for a non-resident. Are we in agreement with that?
And if we're gonna bury somebody, if they are not on our town resident roll.
Yeah, but
whatever.
if a resident buys a lot and that moves out of town,
Well, it's
then
still,
that's different.
yeah,
I mean,
But that's why I say, that's when the town could buy it back and then sell it to somebody else.
But I
well, I
You
don't,
know, I don't have a problem with that, but I think it's inappropriate for a resident to buy it,
and
pay
then,
$25 to transfer it to a non-resident.
yeah,
That was a lot.
Saves them $500. Yeah.
So I would just say that, if they do that, they gotta pay the difference between whatever the resident fee is and the non-resident fee at the time they do the transfer, plus the transfer fee.
That would
Probably
Probably solve that.
probably in your cemetery policies, you'll probably wanna make that change.
we don't, we don't
Let's say,
Some kind of-
maybe a neighbor like you just made.
I think.
Okay, let's find out, I wanna look at that, we need to send that to these
Yeah.
guys to talk about. To
If
look
not,
at.
you should probably come up with one, but I would think there's some
I think
kind of
there's something in
documents
there.
and stuff, I can't imagine there's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Alright.
many people are shopping around for the cheapest.
Well, they are,
They're coming from out of state, a lot of
Yeah.
some.
Well, I just think with Heber raising their rates as well, it's gonna happen
Yeah.
more here, so we may wanna
So-
address it.
So you're
So
doing
do
that,
we
or you're
wanna
gonna
raise
change it to
our-
non-residents?
so do we wanna raise our non-residents fee?
If a person bought it as a resident and they move away, they're still considered a resident as far as this
Right.
application, right?
Right,
Okay.
because they're grandfathered in with that, that would be a grandfathering in thing.
My feeling is if
Well,
somebody wants to
usually-
be buried there because they love being there, it should be somewhat comparative to what they're gonna pay elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think the
Otherwise,
other
they're value
cities-
shopping and they're ending up here.
If you move away and you're buried, you still pay the non-resident burial fee.
The burial fees, but the
But you
lot,
still own
They
the
already
lot.
own the
right,
lot.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask a question?
So it's $1,800 in Heber for a non-resident and we're $980?
yeah,
Yeah.
See, Sean wants to have room
So
up there.
what happens like with my nephew? My nephew lives in Provo going to school. My brother's a resident. What if he buys a burial plot for his son? So is it immediate family kind of a thing, or is it just straight
Well,
up
he-
somebody who's a non-resident?
Well, if he keeps it in his name, own name,
yeah.
I was gonna say, that's his dad that bought it, so it's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're a resident here and you
So
purchase
if it's
a plot,
immediate
you can bury
family,
whoever you want.
family
well,
member
they can be
lives out of town.
buried in it, and if he's a resident, but what he would do is keep it in his own name, and then if something
Keep the
happened,
plot in his own name.
and then
Okay.
he could have, any, whoever.
I mean,
buried
I've got 4 burial lots in Wallsburg, and all I need to do is tell who I want buried there. I don't, because my
Okay,
dad bought
that
that
makes
as a
sense.
burial lot.
That's what
I've never bought a burial lot, so I was just curious on
Better
that.
get after it.
I'm getting ready, don't worry. I saw the news last night.
Yeah, I don't see what Sean's talking about or that.
Yeah.
But buying a lot as a resident transferring it to a non-resident, just to bypass the cost.
So you're gonna prohibit that then, or?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I'm confused, okay, so,
Well, we're gonna make a
Well, I
motion
would- I
here in
would
a few
just-
minutes.
I
well,
would
just so I'm kind of know what because I have two different.
I'd say if they do the transfer, they gotta pay the difference between what they
Or
paid
just not
for
allow it at all,
or not allow it at all.
which way
But if
is
you
it?
don't allow it at all, then you don't have the probability of perhaps getting a transfer fee, you're not gonna get anything out of that. If someone else sends it there, right?
Well, the transfer fee we just put in there last year, so I think it's,
Well, like you say, if a resident buys it, knowing that they're gonna bury an older person that's in the family that's not living in Charleston, there's nothing you do about that, because it's a resident, and they can bury whoever they want, well,
They own it.
right.
so.
But if I would go out and buy a plot in Charleston, and then I had somebody come to me and say, well, we want to be buried in Charleston, but we haven't got a plot there, and I would say, okay, well, I've got one and I'll transfer it to you, you can't do that.
That's
Right?
up to you. Well, you can now.
Well, you can now, but,
Well, that's what you're gonna have to decide, because there's two different things you've got on the table.
Right.
Are you not gonna allow the transfer at all, or are you gonna allow the transfer but require them to pay the difference between?
oh,
the,
yeah.
Or stop selling lots to non-residents.
Or, yeah. True.
So,
Yeah.
What difference does it make if you own the lot and you want your great-grandfather to be buried there and you have it in your name, who cares?
That's what they're
That's
saying.
what we're
That's-
saying.
That's a
not a
resident.
problem.
This
Burying
is somebody coming
someone
from
you
like,
know.
That's what I'm saying, you're a resident.
Right,
Is there a lot of demand that non-residents are asking right now?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah.
The difference is, the difference is.
So, you know-
there's a difference between that.
It
and
sounds
somebody coming
kind
in
of
and
sad,
buying
but they're
a
trying to
plot
corner a
because
market
it's
on
cheaper
something.
than,
They're
Yeah.
buying up lots.
Somebody's
selling
coming in
them.
and they're buying, say, 10 lots,
Uh-huh.
okay? Then they're selling them 10 lots to a non-resident,
to their
I
friends.
get that, I get that.
okay?
But,
So-
but if they buy the 10 lots and they own them, and they say, well, Frank Richards is gonna be buried there, who knows who Frank Richards is, but it's still his lot.
Yeah, we don't care as long as
So
it's
he
not
could-
transfer ownership.
He
Yeah,
could
as long as they're
bury
not
him without
transferring the
even
ownership.
transfer him, couldn't he?
well,
No,
I
they
don't,
can't.
I don't think you can control
Yeah.
it.
Why?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can bury without being transferred.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
You brought.
If,
we're not
if I
trying to
bought
transfer
3
it.
lots and my son died and he lives out of town and I
you can
put him
bury
there.
him in your lot.
Yeah.
What if say my brother-in-law died or my sister that lives, whoever, I would just say, she's gonna be planted here, I own this lot, she's gonna be
That's
buried
okay.
there.
That's okay.
But
Not
you're
a
not
big deal.
transferring, you're
Not
not
where I'm
transferring
Not
it
if
to
you're trying to
different
transfer
people.
That is correct, but that's the thing, if you wanna get around the transfer, you just say, hey,
All right,
I own it, Joe Blow's going there, and that's all there
and
is to
that's
it.
okay, but if a non-resident comes in,
So Jim, are you gonna buy a bunch of lots and go
I
advertise? you
could,
got them available?
I'm gonna invest in cemetery property.
we've
With this
had
COVID
people-
thing, I think I could make some
We've had people do
bank.
that, Jim, we've
What?
had people do that.
Yes.
You probably have, but you know what? If they're cheap enough and you can do it,
Yeah.
how are you gonna stop that? I'm not saying I'm gonna do it, but I'm saying,
And I'm not saying we should stop it. What I'm saying is that if a non-resident comes in and says, I need a burial plot, I'm gonna find somebody in Charleston to buy it for me so I can get it cheaper,
bingo.
then that's what we
they're
wanna
doing. That's
stop.
what they're doing.
I understand that, but how, if somebody came to me and says, I wanna be buried in Charleston, and I came to you and says, I've got 3 family members, I want 3 lots. Okay, and you sell me a lot, and I turn around and have them buried there, what difference
As
does
long
it
as
make?
you're a resident.
Yeah.
As
you're
long as
okay.
I live here, who cares?
Nothing, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is that the ownership of the lot is by a resident, not a non-resident.
That is correct, I would own the lot, but
Right.
anybody could be buried there.
Anybody you said could be buried there.
So
could
I
be
guess
buried
it's a
there.
non-point is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well,
Except if the non-resident came that didn't have a resident here,
yeah.
that would be true.
Let me share an actual example of this happening. And I think the reason, one thing is that Brian's saying there is a title or a deed to that plot.
You're right.
My best friend fell off a ladder and died on St. Patrick's Day in 2020 over in Midway. She didn't have any plots. We're from Provo, so East Lawn, our family has a bunch of plots. Sue wanted to bury him up there, but plots are $4,000 and starting and going up. So long story short, I said, Sue, just use one of the plots we've got. He was buried in it. But she, and I understand where she's coming from, she wanted to have the deed to where her husband was buried in her name, not someone else's name. Because if I got unhappy, I guess I could have Bob kicked out. I mean, she wanted to have ownership, if you will, of that plot for her husband. And
I don't get that, but go ahead.
well, some people are that way,
Okay.
you know, so, you know.
I've got 8
people may
plots
be
in
involved enough to
Paradise,
have
or my
their name on that
family
plot
does.
that their family's buried in rather than having it owned by someone else. It's kind of a,
But
But it
once
depends on the
somebody's
individuals.
buried in it, who cares, you're not paying taxes on it.
no, I know that, but she didn't want to have her husband on my
But
property.
you could
for-
maybe, okay,
ever.
so you've got these plots, you have somebody buried on there, and you maybe get mad at their family and say, get him out of there. I mean, you probably would never do that, but
You're
some
probably,
people
I
would.
agree with your scenario, but to me, it's so trivial, who cares?
I know, and I've seen it happen
It's
though.
just a
Okay.
vindictive
Oh, yeah.
thing.
I've seen it happen here in our town where somebody's got mad and had their husband dug up and moved somewhere
Adam
else.
exhumed.
Well,
Okay.
if Darryl owns the plot, we can actually remove the headstone off his plot.
Yeah.
It's still my property
Yep,
if
it's
it's not
his
deeded
property,
to.
that headstone
Yeah.
can be ejected out.
Okay.
I mean, I know you wouldn't do it, Jim, I wouldn't do that, but there is people that would do that.
I need one
And
more
if you-
spot.
I may have to invest in a cemetery.
If you ever
That
go
sounds
to
like a
exhume a
good-
body from one of these, you actually have to exhume and get permission.
What's that?
I said, if you ever go to exhume a body, you actually have to have the owner of the plot approve it, not the family member.
Yeah,
Oh, I can believe that.
Yeah.
That's
We've
just,
had to do that one, we had to track her all the way down.
You have that here.
That has to be
Yeah.
done. So-
okay, so should we, let's,
You'll have to put it on another agenda because you don't have it on for adoption.
So here's where I see the
Fee
possible
schedule.
action.
Well, the fee schedule has to be done by resolution.
Oh,
So you'll have to decide today and then we'll put it
Okay.
on for next month.
But this is a policy change, not a, and yeah, you do have it on for, if you wanted to do something to the fee schedule, just assign
number 2.
a number to it, and I think you could act on that because you've got on there for action, but anything that has to do with money has to be done by resolution. But
Okay.
as far as changing your policies and that's not on your agenda tonight, so you don't need to.
Okay, so let's talk about purchasing the lots. Do we want to raise prices?
But I guess if you wanted to add
It's up to you guys.
if you wanted to add a thing that says transfer fee.
Well, I don't think
You
we
could raise
change the
the price.
You could
residents.
raise
I
it,
think
you
we
could
should
raise the
raise the
price.
non-residents.
Or-
Yes,
or-
Dave.
or
Do we want
put
to sell
a
to
section on there
non-residents?
that says transfer to a non-resident, the difference between plus, you could add that,
That's
because that's a
what,
fee.
yeah.
So that long discussion, I got in the weeds, but,
Yeah.
so, here's the issues I see. Do we want to sell lots to non-residents? If so, how much do we want them to pay? And do we want to allow residents to transfer lots to non-residents? I say
So-
no to that.
And if so, do you want
And I say if,
But all that would have to be on a different agenda.
yeah, it'd have to be different, but and the other thing is, if it's $1,800 for a non-resident to buy a lot in Heber, we should be more than half that. We should be closer to that.
Can we move this back a couple of months so I can buy mine before it goes into effect?
Well, we're not changing the 420. We're not changing for
Oh, we're not
the
gonna do the
residents.
residents, so-
Or just not sell them to non-residents.
to? Yeah, that's an option.
Let's say we put it on the agenda and come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, think about it for a month. Let's put it back on the agenda.
I think
Lot
we had a
purchase.
question here.
Yes, Dave.
Just from having been involved since 1996, the price for cost to buy a plot, in my opinion, should not be raised on residents themselves, but to solve the challenge of having somebody buy them at that price, so that people that do not have a place to bury their ancestry for the same price. But on the other hand, those that quite often are, let's put it this way, almost on the road, almost homeless, and then you're going to put the extra price on top of them to put their ancestry in the ground. And so you're facing an issue. The residents themselves, the cemetery plots are for us as residents. And we need to keep that very sacred. As long as the residents does not go to the point in saying, well, I can just bypass this and save my friend over here $500 or $600 or whatever it is, so that they can get somebody buried. So we need to have some integrity in our residents saying, all right, this is our privilege of having, I think it's 425 right now, isn't it?
420.
420. So the point that's important, let's leave the residents alone. Attack or take on the issue of somebody from outside,
That's all we talked about.
non-residents, so that they don't take it away from us. And take that issue as a separate issue and handle it.
To that point though, if you have a resident that for whatever reason decides they want to transfer ownership, even though at the time they bought it, it wasn't their intention, I still think that there needs to be, that transfer is going to incur the difference between the lots. Do you not feel that would be fair,
Or not allow them to transfer to a non-resident.
That would be the thing, if you not allow them, saying if they don't want it, sell it back
Allow a
to us.
resident to transfer to a
But you can't
non-resident.
transfer it. You can
Yeah,
do
you
that.
have to
So it
just
would have to
sell
come
it
back to the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sell it back to the town and not allow them to transfer.
Yeah.
I think
That'd be
that's
one
a
way
good
to
If
go.
it's a case where he's got some homeless guy that doesn't have anywhere to be buried, if Dave's got a plot and wants to offer that to him, fine.
Right.
But you can bury them if I own the plot and I have Joe Bloke down the street, or say example, if Dominic, our resident traveler,
More money.
if I felt like it and I owned a plot and he didn't have a spot, I could say, Travis, bury him right here.
Right, right. That
Yeah,
would
we're
be
not
your,
arguing that.
we're not arguing that point. We're arguing where a non-resident comes in, gets a resident to buy him a plot, and then they transfer it to the non-resident, and they only have to pay $420.
Right, and they should,
So,
that should be addressed in a separate issue.
okay, let's table that, come back with our thoughts on that, you guys. Look
Do I
this
have a
fee
name?
schedule over,
Yeah, his name is Dominic.
look at this fee schedule over.
He's got more money than you'll ever
Dominic
see.
from
Able to.
You know, Dave.
So let's,
They should just not
let's
let
look
them
at the
transfer.
other, fee schedule along with this for next month. And if you see of anything that needs to be changed, let us know.
different
Let me know, let Karen know, so that we can write it down and have it for next meeting. I think it's pretty good, but, you know, I think we need to look at the
Thank you, I appreciate that.
non-resident prices again. So, okay? All right, let's move on.
Shucks, I decided, after burying my dad, I want to be buried in Midland because he used it.
Okay.
I can't.
Yeah. No? So you gotta stay in Charleston. Okay, now we'll move on to planning for potential future annexations. Okay, this is one that's I'm turning over to Brian because Brian understands this a lot better than I do, but we need to do something that's gonna plan for our annexations. We need to come up with some kind of a policy or something that's gonna affect everybody that annexes in. We don't wanna be left like we was a few years back, and we wanna be prepared for this. So Brian, I'm gonna turn it over to you now.
Brian, can you kind of outline the problem we're trying to address
Yes,
by talking what
absolutely.
we're talking about?
Absolutely. So I think the easiest way to explain it was our last council meeting, when we had the lady come in, tell us what we wanted on our property. Lots of apartments and things like that. And then we kind of talked during that meeting that, we need to, so we need to have and what they kind of call it is an area plan. So you have your general plan that's for the whole town. Then you don't have to, but you can have area plans. So there's like a subset of the general plan. It says, okay, more specifically, this is what we want to see in this area. The mayor had suggested that I and the planners, do that. That's not typically how that's done. That's just, the mayor didn't understand that. We talked about it, but that would be no different than really us saying, you guys come up with a plan. And you've got good people, but that's not what they do for a living. And so it's very typical to do that, to get a consultant to do that. I've talked with Wes quite a bit in the interim. I've talked to consultants, I've talked to our planners where I work in South Jordan to try to see, what the cost is gonna be. So the cost of doing something that for about 100 acres to have a really good plan, and that would include, like I said last time, you can do what they call bubble diagrams. You just say, okay, well, we want quarter-acre lots here, and we want a Walmart here, and but that doesn't mean it really is gonna happen, because it doesn't really mean there's a market for it, and these things can change over time. So you do an economic analysis, and an economic analysis looks into not just what makes it, then they'll look at the trends and what makes sense. And like right now, really, today, if any commercial you do is probably just gonna be more of what we got, more where they call either flex space or office warehouse. That's what's happening across Salt Lake Valley. If you consider apartments commercial, yeah, they're going all over the place, but from a commercial standpoint, you're not seeing really any retail. You're seeing a lot of convenience stores, C-stores, Mavericks on a tear. It seems like each one of these chains takes a year and they just go crazy. This year, Mavericks putting in all kinds of, actually they did last year too, or the last couple of years. But anyway, you might see that, but as far as saying, okay, well, we want an office building and we want some retail, as we all know, retail's not expanding right now, whatnot. So but they would look at that, do a market analysis. They'd also talk to, you could do, they do kind of like a focus groups. They do look at people from the town with how they want to see it done. They talk to to developers, and talk to different people and try to get an idea of what really could happen here. So we're not just doing, so many times cities just draw up plans and they never even come close to fruition because from a market standpoint, they make no sense. So they look at all that, and then you turn around and say, okay, we're probably, to do this, we'd have this many, and they don't design exactly where every street goes, but you can say, okay, we're gonna have this type of development, we're probably gonna have this much street, and then they can say, okay, and say, okay, we're gonna have this many homes and other land. They'll generate a revenue. Say, this is what we can expect from tax revenue, both from property tax and sales tax. And then they'll generate a cost to maintain it, what it's gonna cost, and if we're gonna put sewer in this area, then, you're gonna have to figure out some way to maintain those sewer lines. Heber City and Midway both have these big vac trucks that are hundreds of thousands of dollars that they flush the lines with. Well, we probably wouldn't have enough to justify that, but we have to figure out how to contract somebody to flush these lines every so often. And if you're gonna have lift stations, which the way everything's are, then you're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna maintain those. So we have to, we would do some engineering things with Wes. They would work with Wes, say, okay, this is where we're gonna need some lift stations, this is what, initially they cost, the initial cost isn't as big a deal to put in, because the developer front that cost. It's the O&M, long term, that, that really gets you. As you've seen with with Winterton Farms, you have to maintain these roads, and the more roads you get in, and what can be a real struggle for a community that all of a sudden booms and gets a whole bunch of new roads is, then they're all gonna need treatments and all that at the same time. So that's one of the things South Jordan's facing. In the last 20 years, we've added, I don't know how many hundreds of miles of road, but when that road needs to be done like Winterton, it's gonna be a lot at the same time. And so so you can kind of figure all that stuff out, like I say, figure out what's gonna cost you in labor. Are you gonna need another employee to help plow them? Are you gonna need, what are those things? So, we look at that. So the bottom line is, from what I can surmise from everybody I've talked to, is you're probably talking about $25,000 to $30,000 to do something like that. My opinion is that would, even though we need to do that, that would be kind of a waste of money until we really know, are we going to get sewer? And how are we gonna handle the water? So I think it needs to be done, but I think, and so we've got an annexation before us. I think that as far as that goes, what we've done before, we need to do an annexation agreement. I can help draw that up. We can talk about it. We'll probably have the public hearing for that one in February, for the annexation.
For Mike. It's on the
We
board.
don't have to approve it that night. We just have to say, and we can say, okay, well, we still need more information, we still need to talk. I would suggest that we get a good plan that he wants to put in there. And, we need to tell him this, but, but say, we want a good plan of what you're gonna put in there, and then we attach it to the development agreement so that we can hold him to it. We didn't get that done last time. So it's part of the reason we've got so many problems with those buildings is he was gonna put like 3 lots where the one building is, and where across the street from his building was gonna be another 3 lots. Well, then he decided to sell them as one big lot. And then we ended up off all these problems with fire flow. That wouldn't have been a problem had we been able to hold him to what we wanted to in the beginning, because we would have had him build these buildings that wouldn't be big enough that the fire flow would be a problem. But, things changed, but then we had, so we had to deal with it, with the fire and that. So until we really understand that the sewer is going to happen, and from what I've been, talking to Wes and that, it sounds like we may be a year out from when Heber City even makes that decision. In the meantime, the rumors got out that sewer's coming to Charleston, and my phone is blowing off the hook from potential buyers of these properties. We've got the property just south of Allen Brown's, the 20 acres that, they made application. They wanted to be on the planning commission agenda, and in their plan is, we're hooking up to the sewer. Well, okay, and I had a long talk with her attorney on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Monday. I had a long talk with their attorney who, is representing them and sent us the fund letter and all that. And I said, so I had a long talk and explained to him where we're at, and I'm saying, well, and we have a provision in our subdivision ordinance called inadequate public facilities. And basically it says is if public facilities aren't adequate, then either you can put them in, which at this point means they would have to run all the way to the sewer treatment plant, because we don't have permission from Hebert or Wheel, we don't have, anyway, so if that's the case, then great. Can your project front that cost, and can you get permission from Heber City to dig up their roads and all that fun stuff? And anyway, it ended good. We had a good, and he was like, okay, I've seen a lot of things that I didn't understand. And I said, and then quite frankly, their application was inadequate because all they turned in was subdivision plat. But the ordinance, and it's very typical, that requires construction drawings that show, okay, this is where we're putting our water lines, this is the details on, and that will all have to be approved by the water district.
would require them to design the sewer, but we don't even know what to tell them. We don't know what the depths in the ground will be. So that they can flow to them. We don't want them to just design something and say, okay, well, then whenever we get done, we'll just put another lift station in. We want as few lift stations as possible. So we want areas that can drain by gravity to whatever lift station, and we'll have to have some. And then, like I say, up in this annexation area, I've got all kinds of people who want to do all kinds of things, but they're talking to the county health department and being told that Charleston's getting sewer, so that's, I think in some ways, not to throw anybody under the bus, but I think they're probably tired of these conversations, and the easy answer is, well, Charleston's getting sewer, just design for sewer. Well, and that's what I had to tell, so I wrote a letter back to the attorney, but it's basically outlining that, we don't, you're turning your application based on something that may happen, may not happen for quite a while, or may never happen. So how do we approve you based on that? So if and quite frankly, I mean, I've had calls from Blake Howell's subdivision, a Little Pine place or whatever, and I had one guy, wants to build a house. He says, well, would the town be okay with me putting in a regular septic tank, and then if that sewer doesn't come in within a couple of years, then I'll put in the more expensive one. But one, that's a really hard thing to do, to get somebody to change. But even on the surface, I told him, I said, I'm not sure you understand. I said, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but I said, quite frankly, that's not our decision. And I don't think the town cares if the health department allows you to put all your sewage in 5-gallon buckets and truck it to the sewer treatment plant. We'll give you a building permit, but because that's not our call. I mean, and I said, that's a far-fetched thing, but I'm trying to make a point in that whatever the health department approves is what we're stuck with. And that's what I had to talk to the attorney about. And too, I said, these aren't our decisions. And quite frankly, we don't control the water in town, and we're either gonna have to rely on Water Conservancy District to upgrade the system in the area, or we're gonna have to, work with Daniel to bring it across. We don't really have any other options. We really don't, we're not gonna go into the water business ourselves and compete with those two entities. So we're really dependent on these other entities. And so, anyway, so I know we talked, so one reason I want to bring this up is we talked about, starting this after the first of the year, and the more I talked with Wes, and the more I looked into it, and the costs and stuff, I think you'd be throwing your money away if we just, right now, if we put it out to bid, because there's so many unknowns that we come back with probably as many or more questions than we do answers. So I just want to tell you, I think that, we need to continue to be diligent to work with Heber and whatever else, and we absolutely do need to, but I think if somebody else comes in, wanting to annex into the area, I think we need to say, we're quite frankly not ready. We need to do these plans, but we've got to have a couple of other pieces of the puzzle put together before we can do that.
And that should apply, I assume, to Mike's proposed annexation?
It very well could. I'd say unless he puts together a plan that we go, okay, we can live with that. That makes sense for that part of the property.
For what we have now.
For what we have now. But quite frankly, I don't know what's going on out there, but he's got, from what I'm told, by a buyer of his property, is that he has in his contract that they'll have sewer to that property in 10 months. And like I said, we're probably a year out from even getting an answer from Heber, let alone probably, and that's what I've been telling everybody, we're gonna, if we get permission from Heber, we're probably a year to 2 years beyond that before there's pipes in the ground that can be hooked into.
I appreciate his optimism.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I talked to Brian last week, and I've thought about it quite a bit. Here's kind of what I've come to. I agree with what Brian's saying. It's hard to develop any kind of a master plan for that because we don't know what we're gonna have.
Right.
even with Mike's annexation request, having seen what we've dealt with, what he's already done, in my opinion, I don't think we even want to annex that until we have an answer on what's gonna happen with our ability to get sewer, because that changes the game. If we don't get it, then okay, then we can move forward with what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But likelihood is, if we annex that now, tell Mike, you gotta put these septic systems in, he's gonna be selling lots and telling people we're gonna have sewer in 10 months.
We're gonna be
So-
just extenuating the mess we're in now. And like I said, we've got all people that are buying, potential buyers for Mike's property, for the one that he sold, and, you know, that building's up for sale. There's some really decent uses, and then to back up just a little bit, so Mike's really got his problem solved with the water. He might have a little bit of a problem with the septic tanks because of the type of uses he's allowed, and the health department's watching very closely how those food service type things affect that septic tank, if it's gonna work or not. Now, if the other building, I mean, I'm talking to some buyers, and it's not Rex Sorensen, that's the guy that runs the Swags, but it's some other big developer people that want to put a boat dealership in there. They want to use a big portion of it for boat sales.
Great idea.
And they want to do a boat sales, you know, if they did that, that'd be a good thing for the town.
Yeah.
It'd be good for Heber. We've got 3 lakes within 15 minutes of us.
Yeah.
It's crazy not to have a boat dealership here.
Yeah, well, and if it's in the town, then we get the sales tax.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
So that's great.
Bulk sales and airports don't mix.
But the downside to it is, they want to have 30,000 feet of unrestricted area, and with their fire flow, they can't do that. They've got to be compartmentalized into 5,900 square feet.
Yeah.
So,
Or they can do it,
or, yeah,
if they.
or they can put in a sump tank. And so if they put in a tank, and they've been talking to Clint at the fire marshal with the county, and if they put in this big sump tank, then what would happen is, you know, the fire department, what they do is they pull up to it, they drop the little drafter in there, they hook up to the fire sprinkler, and they can suck out of there and push the fire sprinkler system. And you know, and so, and my reason for bringing this up is, you know, if they solve that, you know, and Mike solved his issues for that property, what incentive do those companies have to want to hook up to sewer and water? I mean, really, the septic tank is in for the big building, and if they don't have any, you know, if they have uses like that, that septic tank is more than adequate to handle whatever they're doing. You know, they're gonna have just a few people in there.
Yeah.
And so we say, okay, you know, and the one that's been promised the line is, from my understanding, is the empty parcel, lot 2, I believe it is, or maybe it's lot 3. Anyway, it's the one on the north side there. They don't know what they want to do with the property, the people that have got the option to buy it. They're considering maybe a convenience store, or, you know, maybe more office warehouse, more. And so anyway, you know, and so I think, you know, to help, I appreciate what Lon just said, is that we annex this next piece in, and then we haven't solved these issues. Now, is there a risk that they could go run into another city? Yeah, there is. But at this point, maybe we'd be better off if they did, if we don't, than to bring them in and not really know what we want and how to handle it.
Right, I agree with that.
And so, anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of give you a heads up on. And that's why I don't think we should move forward yet. I think it is an excellent idea at some point. You know, if other puzzle pieces fall into place, but I think we just be throwing our money away because we just have no clue right now. I mean, we have a pretty good idea. I guess if I was betting, you know, with what I know from you folks and from what's going on, I think probably we'll end up with sewer in that area at some point, but that's still just an unknown.
So the lot that Mike still got is supposed to be a gas station, convenience store. their whole presentation originally was, it's a no deal unless we put a gas station.
Well, and that was actually on the lot that he built his building on.
Yeah, but that's not required, we don't have anything that requires that.
Oh, we didn't put anything in the agreement that required that we, you know.
And there's not gonna be a gas station in there, I don't think, unless you have sewer.
Yeah, and I think that's because they're limited, I guess, you know, the sewer, or the health department looks at the number of pumps is their key on how many people a day will come in and you know, use that and whatnot, and that's, so I guess till April, I think it is, he has permission for 8 pumps on a septic tank. But, after that, I don't think he has any promises from the health department.
So, you know, just based on that, even annexing the next piece, if we do it, we have to be certain that Mike understands that this is based on non-sewer.
And inadequate fire flow.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not under the assumption that we'll ever get sewer. It would be, the assumption would be that we would never get it because we don't know. But I'd be inclined to kind of try and hold off until we get an answer from Heber City.
So, anyway, that's my reason.
Your name?
Jeremy Taylor?
Oh,
You're
go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I've just got a lot of thoughts going through my head. The first one I'd like to say is I'd just like to give my brother a little bit of credit for streaming this. I was sitting there watching this on YouTube before I came over here, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air to be able to watch that without exposing myself to the risks of the day, and I really appreciate what he's trying to do here. Second of all, I've been on the water board for Charleston for about 2 years now, and what you guys are talking about right now comes up in every one of our meetings. It's definitely a worry of the board, and I know it's a worry of you guys. I don't have any answers, I just have more questions than answers that come to this, but like you guys said, sewer pivots around not only what Charleston town does, but also what the water board has to do in the next few years. Personally, not talking for the board, but personally, I think it's a very wise decision to have a master plan that both Charleston town and the water board can work off of for future plans. I know that we've discussed extensively about getting another well. We've discussed how to better serve you guys in that annexation project. It really worries us how we're going to get the right water flow up there. And personally, I think that this growth is coming whether we like it or not. We are limited though, as a water board, for people exchanging shares of water for share for their water when they hook up. So it's really going to limit the town and its ability to grow, especially with the housing units that people are proposing, apartment type complexes and stuff. But once again, it all reflects back on to what's going to happen with the sewer. Personally,
Just to interrupt you real quick, and the sewer really depends on, there's no reason to have sewer if we don't have adequate water.
absolutely.
So anyways.
It's one and the same. It's one and the same, and depending on where the town goes with the sewer is the way we're gonna have to go with the water. We're, and you put sewer into this town, you are gonna see crazy growth. And we need to be prepared for that, one way or the
And
other.
if you don't put sewer in the town, you've got an excellent guarantee against unfettered growth, which is what the citizenry concluded 20 years ago. When
Exactly.
we put this out for a vote.
Exactly.
Dave will remember, and others that were here at the time when John Whiting was mayor. And there was the opportunity for free sewer in connection with money from the Olympics. And the town was hotly divided between whether we should have sewer or not. Ultimately, the then council had the good idea to put it out for a vote, and it was voted down.
Mhm.
We had several town meetings, and the main discussion was, if we have sewer, then your growth decisions become potentially unlimited. But take an airplane above Heber Valley, you can see where there's sewer and where there isn't based simply on the density. The best guarantee against unreasonable growth is no sewer, septic system, and you can control your growth in a way that you can't when you have sewer. So I like what you said about sewer in that area.
And that's really all we're
I like
talking
very
about.
much what
So,
you said
Really not
about
talking about sewer throughout the town.
Yeah.
reasonable decisions assuming no sewer. Because that, quite honestly, unless things have changed dramatically in the last 20 years, and I don't know that they have amongst the townspeople, this is not a community that is receptive to pervasive, widespread, everywhere sewer, for the simple reason that with sewer comes growth of the sort that we don't want here. If we wanted to live with 8 plexes and 6 plexes and apartment buildings, we'd live in Heber, or maybe Midway. We wouldn't live in Charleston. We like the rural character of our community, and requiring septic systems is basically the best guarantee to preserve that culture and that ambiance.
So just a little bit more on the sewer side of stuff. I just had my septic tank pumped about 3 weeks ago. Merry Christmas to me. But I discovered that my septic tank is 10 feet down to the top of my tank because I have a basement. And that is going to be very interesting if and when I do hook into a septic system, into a sewer system, because I will have to have a pump at my house to pump up to the line
Most
that's
homes
4
will have
feet.
to have an ejection pump.
Yeah.
The basement, the upper floor will.
Yeah.
The upper floor will flow,
It's
but
across the street.
There's
All
several
do
of
the
us here
same thing.
that's going to have
I
that.
would
So
think most.
I
homes would.
would
Unless you
love
have
to
a-
see a master plan for the sewer system before we sign up with anybody to put a sewer system in, just to assess what it's gonna cost the town as an overall, because eventually, we're probably gonna be hooking into sewer system, eventually. And it would be nice to have that view of how much it's gonna cost each individual resident and what the cesspool size we're gonna need to plan on maybe a power outage for a 72-hour period.
Well, and then before you got, I mean, we were talking about, there's going to be lift stations that are required, and we want to put in as few as possible, because they're very expensive to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
We need to require others to put them in, unless we start putting sewer throughout the town for existing residents. But if we're only doing it for some of these, areas that are developing, the developers put it, but we'll still have to
So then it
maintain
would be limited to sort of the new areas?
Yes, that's what our purpose has been all along.
And that's, the
Is
discussion of going
just to the
throughout the
commercial.
town, but who knows, at some point.
Wouldn't it be nice though to have a master plan that we could kind of refer to and say, okay, this section of Charleston, if we hook sewer into it, is gonna cost this much for the town and this much for each resident type
I
of
think
thing. I'm a huge
that's
fan
kind
of
a
this
next step.
master,
I
yeah.
mean, I think we first gotta figure out, is it even a possibility? And then, really what's been talked about is just for this area, and then the charter school's having problems with their septic system, and they're talking about running a line down that line, down to there, and then, but that's spurring that new subdivision that just went there to folks saying, well, geez, why would we wanna put in these $80,000 septic systems if in 2-3 years there's going to be a sewer line we can hook up to, and then, like I said, there's another development that's, south of Alan Brown's property, the 20-acre subdivision, and the county has just gone to 2-acre lots for instead of 1 acre, 2 acres for the hybrid alternative systems,
Mhm.
and still 5 acres for the traditional systems. And so,
That in itself is a controlled growth. We used to think an acre was sufficient, and that would keep growth down with septic. But I think if you've got now up to 2 acres, that pretty much says that we're not gonna be overwhelmed with housing if you wanna pay for the non-conventional septic system.
Well,
And
that's
it'll help for a while, but what,
the historical
Because
perspective that I'm
If you
sorry.
if you go to 2-acre requirement, then you're limiting who's gonna live here. It takes the opportunity for any young people to be able to be there.
and what,
And
what's
so-
happened, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Using septic to control growth at this point in time, I think is not, it can't be done.
And what's
And
happened,
sooner or later,
It's
the
coming.
state or somebody's gonna require sewer. Now, to answer your question, Jeremy, we're not even considering sewer to anything other than that commercial area.
And the school.
And potentially the school. In my mind, that would be it until somebody requires.
But I could
Because
see,
I'm like you, I already got a working septic tank and mine comes out of my basement just like yours, I'm not that deep. Well, I'm close.
So,
But as long as I got a working septic system, why do I wanna pay a monthly sewer
Amen.
bill?
And I don't think anybody does, and I don't think that was the
but
object of
I
all
can
of
see,
this.
I can see these big developers with deep pockets coming in and saying, hey, I wanna hook in your septic system. I'm willing to drop some coin to do it.
and what's happened in two communities that I'm aware of, which is Linden and Bluffdale, is that's exactly what's happened. Is some big developers came in and bought property, and then they sued those cities, saying that it's what they call exclusionary zoning, or your zoning and your 2 acres is excluding everybody from living in your town. And the judges have said, okay, and they've allowed, that's when they allowed apartments in Bluffdale and different things, and so, and you know, it's not so far-fetched to see the judges saying, okay, you've got some major landowners here, to force the town at that point to put in a sewer system. You know, or you know, and this, like I said, stuff
Yeah.
isn't completely far-fetched because it has happened in other communities in Utah, and so, you know, but I think, you know, we've got steps, and I don't disagree that we need a plan and some different things, but I think those are down the road from when, first of all, we decide, like I say, we decide is the Water Conservancy District gonna be able to or willing to provide the water for like the commercial areas? That's huge on what we decide. Is Daniel willing to come across and do it, and how does that work between, the Charleston
See, we would have to
District?
buy that water from Daniel and then resell it.
Or,
as
yeah, if that's the
district.
way you do it, or is
Yeah.
it Daniel just gonna, are they just gonna spread their system throughout that
Mhm.
area? So there's, those are just the things we don't know, and we can't really do a really good plan for that
I
until
agree.
we know those kinds of things.
So, way before I lived in Charleston, I worked with Vaughn's son, Jeremy, at a little company that I still work at called West Tech Engineering. And West Tech does water treatment systems worldwide, wastewater and drinking water. And I don't know the whole scope of stuff, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. I know there's some obstacles with the Department of Environmental Quality and all this other stuff, but we supply little package plants, is what we call them,
Yeah.
to towns all the time. I've been to millions of them that literally come in on
When I worked in
semi-trailers.
Arizona, we did package plants all over the place.
Yeah.
And
And-
Arizona has been much more receptive to that. In my opinion, Utah is way behind in their approvals of these kinds of things.
Mhm.
I mean, it took the LDS girls camp
Yeah, that's a good example.
before the state would even allow the first one in.
Mhm.
And they, you know, and I don't know how much pressure the church put on, whatever, but anyway, so they've started, but now we're kind of seeing a little reins being pulled in because the health departments are saying, oh, these alternative systems aren't working out as well as we thought. So, but that's
There's other
there's
options.
nothing we can do about
Yeah,
that.
I'm just trying to get at the point that there are other options than just hooking into
Absolutely.
Heber City. And I know that the Department of Environmental Quality has that ability to approve those types of projects. The reason why I bring that up is I know that lift stations are expensive to maintain. I was just in Kansas City last week working on a sewer plant. Those things are very expensive. That's where my paycheck comes every 2 weeks, is from people's wastewater. I'm grateful, I love the smell, it smells like money. But bringing that up, if we do hook into Heber City's sewer, and let's say, worst case scenario, we all did hook into it, every resident of Charleston, we don't have that much population here right now.
our sewer bills would be in excess of $100 a month in my scope of thought. So, you know, it's gonna be expensive, but at the end of my whole ramblings, I know this growth is coming, and I really feel like the town and the water board need to be working very, very closely together, coming up with a master plan so we can both plan for what will come to Charleston.
But you can only do so much, Jeremy, if you don't have a sewer. And that's why
I
it's a
agree.
natural.
And you can only do so much with the limit of being able to only have a certain size of piece of a house on a certain amount of property with the water shares they have to give up in order for us to supply that
And
water.
I can tell you, visiting with these folks, that their preference is to work with the Charleston Water Conservancy District.
Oh, we have to.
I mean, that's really our, you know, and the only way we wouldn't is if the district just said, no way, just go deal with Daniel. But I don't, you know, but otherwise, we want to work, you know, it just makes sense. We've been good partners all these years, it just makes sense to work these things out together. And quite frankly, you know, like in any of these plans we do, the water district would have to be highly involved
Absolutely.
in any of that. And
So
no doubt about
I
it.
am in big support of having some type of a master plan. Worst case scenario versus we don't change anything and we just see
Yeah,
regular
well, certainly,
growth.
that's one of the things when we do this is that, they wouldn't, the consultants wouldn't come back and say, this is what you do. They'd say, well, there's an option, here's an option, here's an option, this is what each of them cost. And that's part of the reason it costs so much money, is they've got to, they look at some different options and then like have public meetings and talk to the residents and all. It's not done in a vacuum by any means, but it does cost a lot of money. And I guess my point is, it doesn't make sense for me to go out to bid this month for something like that, because we've got too many other
Right.
things that need to be answered
Absolutely.
before we can really have the information to feed something like that.
And I think it's important, part of the ongoing discussion should be that only 20 years ago, which is not like, this isn't in Depression days, only 20 years ago, the citizens of Charleston were told, you can get sewer for free, because it was gonna come with Olympic money. You'll remember that, some of you.
I've heard all the stories.
And the hookup is free from street tier, maybe there'll be a little monthly assessment. I think they even were gonna throw in like a 5-year waiver of the fee because they really wanted us to have sewer. And the citizens voted it down 2-1. And that's when it was gonna cost us nothing. So I'm not terribly receptive to this talk of, well, it's gonna come sooner or later and it's gonna cost us a bunch of money. No, I think part of transparency should be letting any and all know that the citizens of Charleston traditionally have an aversion to the sewer. So let's not be making a bunch of plans and applications and whatnot that assume sewer. You've really got your work cut out for you. Now, maybe less so these new areas, the commercial area, fringes of town. I can see where the school might need a gas station, etc. But you bring it to the heart of Charleston, and in 20 years, we'll have 8 plexes surrounding the park.
That was
You're
never our
talking about
plan.
something that's not even been considered.
Yeah, we
And
never
good.
even.
I'm glad to hear that.
We never
Doing
even
it that way, so
considered that.
That's part of the reason we're talking, because since we were starting talking this area, rumors have run rampant that it's
Yeah.
going over the entire town, and that's never been a
That's not-
discussion.
No, I'm
That's
much
not
less
even been
concerned
in
if
our-
it's out on the fringes.
Yeah, that was our only to get sewer down here. We needed more revenue, we needed different things put on that property besides, storage units and storage spaces. We need some tax base, and that's where, as the plan, the capital plan that we have has put the commercial property is up along that highway.
Yeah,
So that's.
which I think is a fine thing, by the way, and I can see where a
Okay,
septic tank
Jim,
may
I
not
think
work
you
for
was
them.
first, and then Bob. Jim?
I was on the board back in the Olympic days of sewer. And I'm here to tell you, we sat behind that table and sewer went down by 12 volts.
Yeah. It wasn't
I
many
mean,
votes.
It was,
Oh, it's by households though, wasn't it?
no, it was
I
by
thought it was 1
volts.
vote per house.
Anyway, we were gonna do sewer. and they talked about it, and of course, I didn't want sewer either, but we didn't do it for various reasons I won't go into.
Sure.
Anyway, I guess what I want to say is, 20 years ago, that was what the citizenry wanted. I think a lot of those that were against, and Vaughn will probably remember this, have passed away. Yeah, I don't think generally everybody wants sewer, but I think those that were ardently against it are probably not here with us anymore. If you took it to a vote, you may have a different outcome. I'm not saying you will or you won't,
Here's the way I see it.
but I just wanted to tell you that. I mean, yeah, he's right. The Olympics would have paid for everything, okay? But I think to know that the demographics have changed.
Yeah.
And so it will,
And they keep.
it'll probably be different. I don't know. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Well, you and I don't want to hook up to sewer.
Not necessarily. I
Anybody
wouldn't.
that's
Go
got a
ahead.
home on a 1 acre lot doesn't want to hook up to sewer, and I think that vote would pretty much go that way. But everybody that owns property would vote for it.
Well, we're gonna be
Because-
forced into it by the property
Because-
owners and
Yeah.
developers.
So,
Or by
what we're
the-
seeing in Wasatch County is we're seeing a lot of growth.
Yeah.
It's gonna come to Charleston, it has already, but what we're seeing is multi-million-dollar homes,
Yeah.
which,
They're not building small homes
and
anymore.
we don't want a community where that's all we got either.
No.
But if some developer come in and bought 100 acres over here or whatever, it doesn't make sense to do 2 acre lots.
No,
We couldn't
you're,
afford the
I'm
roads.
not saying no
And
sewer.
so
All
I'm
I'm
saying-
saying is what happened.
Right.
Just look at what's happening in Wasatch County, it's gonna come. Now, as far as the town right here, we might be able to stay, well, I think we'll stay on a septic system as long as I'm alive.
We hope so.
Well, I have a question for you, Jeremy. You mentioned that other places, what did you call those sewer systems?
Package plants.
Package plants?
Yes.
So,
And it's kind of what schools got in some, it's
If
really
you,
very
but
small.
not
if you
big.
take a ride up and look at the
but it'd be on a
plant-
bigger scale than that, right?
No, if you go up and look at the plant at the girls' camp up on the hill, we supply that version, but literally on a semi-trailer all the time.
Yeah, and
Well,
you
what
can
I'm
just add
saying
more and
is-
more units to make it
Absolutely.
bigger.
What my question is, and maybe it's because the state won't approve it, couldn't that be something that could be considered for that?
It's something that can, and we've talked about that we could localize, and, you know, I mean,
Or is the cost-
theoretically, you could put one in every subdivision, you know, like, you could put
Yeah.
a small one,
It happens.
or you could put, you know, you could run it throughout areas of the town and run it to a certain area. I mean, it would be
And-
better, it would be easier to do that in some ways than it is to push it
A
uphill.
lot of these are put in barn-type buildings, you don't even know it's there.
Okay, let's say the whole let's say somebody bought the whole 100 acres. They could design a system to do that. Now, obviously Peterson's not gonna pay for it to do his next annexation.
And, yeah, and one of our issues has
But
been is that
if you were developing it all at one time, that would be feasible, right?
the health department won't allow a private entity to own one of those.
Oh.
They
They
would have to-
actually, Jacobs Engineering out of Denver, they run a ton of them nationwide.
Well, what I'm gonna say is that the town will have to own it, but you can contract to
Yes.
somebody to
Yep.
run it for you.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
the health department has had this, you know, they won't allow a special service district. I mean, for instance, we have the Ernie Giles Special Service District. That exists, so Ernie Giles could hook up to the sewer, because they wouldn't let him hook up without being a special service district, and it's run, well, without his property being one, so that's it. You know, and they've done some stuff like that, but yeah, it doesn't mean that, you know, you can contract to run it, and there are other ways, and a lot of, like I say, a lot of other states are a lot farther ahead of us, and they've seen these. I mean, you know, the community I worked in, and, you know, they have a water mining situation where they're actually taking more water out of the aquifer than it's coming back. So they actually take these package plants, and you know, I've been to them, I've watched people drink the water as it comes out, it's cleaner than, you know, and then they reverse and inject it right back into the aquifer.
Yeah, they do. I did a tour in Alabama this spring before everything went crazy, and we visited at least a dozen of these little package plants that we'd supplied just to check on them and make sure everything was going. And you know, they're not even manned. They just have a SCADA system on it, and it calls up Dave when something isn't right. So they get checked on once or twice a week, and that's it. But you, like I said, you literally don't even know they're there because they're just in a metal building or a barn or whatever you want to decorate the outside to
Can I
be.
pose a question?
But the health department currently controls our fate on any of these.
So if, let's say the Sundance property out off 2400 South, somebody bought that, developer comes in, buys the whole thing, then he says, oh gee, you guys aren't being fair to us in town. Can he sue us because he could put a package plant on that property and we would have no say?
I don't know if he can sue us, maybe the health department.
Yeah,
Because
they probably fall back to the.
that's like, that was my point with the silliness of the 5-gallon buckets, but, if the health department approves it, so he could put in a system, and, you know, and that's one of the things that this, Lenati property's looking at. After I had this long talk with the attorney, and he said, well, you know, I'm saying, you know, one of the alternatives would be a package plant.
Then if that's the case, then in theory, we may not have the control of the growth that we think we have, because these guys could come in and do this type of a development.
And at that point, the zoning would control, and we would say, okay, but you can't go less than 1 acre lots unless we decide to change that.
And that all comes down to, you've got to, I think I'm speaking for the town council, today, we don't want Charleston growing except for the commercial development.
Right.
And we've been very open about that, transparent as can be. We want tax revenue, we don't want to raise taxes by 2 times like we did a year ago.
Yeah.
And we've got to have the revenue to do it, but we don't want town to grow to do it. We don't want the commercial business in town to do it. But at the same time, we're gone, then another town board comes in and they're in favor of 1/4 acre lots, you got a big problem.
Yeah.
And what we're
So
seeing
I
right
don't know
now
how
is,
you prevent, I don't know what you do to protect against that.
and COVID's affecting a lot of things, and
Yeah.
I think it's affecting Charleston in that way, because I think people have gotten used to working from home, and now they're looking for the Wasatch back as a place to live.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening in Lehigh is affecting Charleston town, because we're right here at the mouth of the canyon, that's a pretty slick little commute down to all those,
Yeah.
you know, those big office buildings that are being built in Lehigh.
Yeah.
I would personally though love to see a master plan and say somewhat, I'm not a big fan of planned communities, but if we don't take the reins of this and take control of it, some big investor is gonna come in with a lot of money in his pocket, and he's gonna be the one to write up our master plan.
I agree, and that's what I'm saying, that's what happened
That's
in
what we
Linden,
thought.
that's what happened in Bluffdale, is Anderson Development, who is one of the honoriest developers in the state, they're the ones and they're developing, all that old Geneva steel property, and they are not afraid to sue anybody, and
Yeah.
that's why they got the judge to say, okay, we can put apartments in an
Yeah.
area that was zoned for 2.5 acre lots.
Right.
So those things happen.
Hey, I'm gonna step
Okay.
up here.
Bob, before I let you speak, I have one thing to say.
That's
If
not
you
fair.
haven't signed the roster when you come in, please do it. And, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, we've always rested on the no less than 1 acre building lot, but now I understand the county will not permit you to get sewer with less than 2 acres. Does
Right.
that mean we have to change our land use ordinance?
No.
Well, how do
We
you?
didn't through the 5 acre lot period. You know, there was a time where
Right,
they
yeah,
said,
and then
we still said, but we did that very specifically so that if some developer, somebody came in and wanted to, then we could point at the health department and say, your beef is with the health department, not with us. We'll allow 1 acre lots. But you've gotta get the health department to sign off on them.
But the health department won't do that for us
Right.
anymore.
No?
We're
Well,
gonna
like I say,
have
and
to
then-
change our land use ordinance to either meet,
No, that's
No,
not
we
do
don't.
it.
well, how can you build a house if you can't get sewer?
You
You
can't.
can't unless you have
You
2
can't.
acres.
It in effect becomes 2 acre lots, but that's not our requirement, that's the health department. And that takes some liability off of us if we're not the one requiring that. But if we go ahead and rezone to 2 acre lots, then we're asking for trouble.
Okay, like Vaughn said, though, 2-acre lots are really unmanageable for
Yeah.
communities.
That's true,
Sure.
that's true.
Well, so let's say you got a 1-acre lot.
No, but I can't get sewer on it.
Brian and I, we'd sign off, build a house.
Yeah,
All you gotta do is have a permit from the
You've got
health
one-
department, you're not gonna get
you've
it.
got one signature that you don't have with Wilt sign off, but you gotta have Tracy Richardson's
So
signature.
what do? I have to buy 1 more acre.
Yeah,
Well,
And
and
the big
it all depends, because the existing 1-acre lots are all fine.
Okay, yeah, that's grandfather.
Yeah,
We
it's all
know that.
grandfathered, it's the future.
And it's the future we're talking about.
yeah.
So really, we don't have control
We don't.
of building,
We didn't when they went to 5-acre lots and didn't allow the alternative systems.
okay.
So we were still 1-acre zoning, that's why Charleston, or Winterton Farms is 5-acre. They're anywhere from 3 to 7, but they average, there's 20 units on 100 acres.
Okay,
And so at that point, they wouldn't allow these, so even though we had 1-acre zoning, the only way to get a subdivision approved through the health department was 5-acre average lots. Now we're in the same situation, only they're saying, well, these alternative systems aren't what we thought they were, so now we're gonna require 2 acres instead of 1 acre, and then 5 acres still for a traditional septic system. So we're kind of been put somewhat back in the same place we were starting back in like 96.
Well, and at that point, if they allowed 1 acre for septic tank, you'd have had a lot.
You'd have 100 lots in there.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
Okay.
And it would have been easier to pay for the road replacement. So Darryl wouldn't have.
Some days I wish I had 1 acre lot.
Okay, I think we can move on. I did talk with Heber City Planner, emailed him, and he did tell me he would have an agreement out next week for us to look at. So, for the sewer, and so we're expecting that to come through soon. So that's all I have on the sewer. I think we need to move on. I think we've hashed this over pretty good tonight.
Can I ask one quick question? Would it be worth having a work meeting to discuss that proposal for River City?
Yes, I think as soon as we get it, we should have a work meeting to do that. And go over that, yes, I think it's very important. Okay, now we'll go to staff reports. Travis?
I don't have anything right. The cemetery was one thing I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
That was it.
Karen? Anything?
Nope, just sorry for the mix-ups. Hey, it's been a rough week. Now, we got it all. I finally figured it out, but
Okay. Brian?
it took a
I
minute.
said plenty.
Okay.
You have talked a lot.
Daryl?
I have nothing.
Vaughn?
I think I've said enough.
I'm good.
You're leaving it up to me then, aren't you?
Well,
Okay.
you're the boss.
Yeah, but you guys are right up there with me. I had a call from a citizen today on the Mount Deer property again, about the trucks coming in and out of there, sometimes 60 times a day. He's counted them. They do own, they have got the property up in Heber that's big enough to put all that stuff on. I think we should write him a letter, me and you. Brian, we need to write them a letter and state that they need to move that stuff because it's not in what they're supposed to be doing down there.
I just caution you, these are the kind of things you probably shouldn't bring up in council
Oh,
meeting.
okay, never mind,
But this can all be handled, there's nothing that has to be done,
no,
and then you end up creating a potential.
Right.
They were being talked about and whatnot. But
Right.
These are all things that can be handled without.
okay. All right then,
Sorry.
certainly that's all I have.
Can I say one thing that has nothing to do with sewer?
Sure.
I really appreciate it.
Tell me who you are.
I'm Greg Gorm. I'm sorry, I signed in. Some people know me, some don't.
You live over
Attorney
at the
Greg.
end of the subdivision.
Indeed,
I've seen you
I'm
for
next door
16 years.
neighbor of the Mackenzies
Okay.
Oh, okay.
and live by the cemetery, so I was listening.
Our
online. Neighbors of the Taylor.
Well, I've heard your name, I've never mentioned it.
Back in the
Oh, it's
day,
good to see you, Vaughn, and I remember you from the round one of the sewer.
Except as long as you got your mask on,
Yeah.
I recognize you.
I know, isn't that the dangest thing?
Yeah.
I greeted a woman a couple of days ago in my hall, and she, oh, well, good to see you. And then like half an hour later, I didn't realize that was you, and it's the
Yeah.
darn mask. Anyway, having lived here for 30-plus years, back when you could give directions to my place with reference to the traffic light
Yeah.
in Hebrew, I have really appreciated your monthly or periodic emails.
Thank you.
Those are really, really nice, and I think I'm probably not alone in appreciating how that sort of kept me more connected without necessarily having to come to meetings. By the same token, since we weren't able to do our Christmas party, which my colleague Jade's daughter said, I kind of miss the Christmas party, and I think that's cool, but what a nice gesture it was to find in my mailbox the nice little booklet with pen and a gift from the town. I thought that was a really nice gesture, and I don't know how many people thought to thank the town council for it, but I really like those two things that have happened under your administration, the monthly newsletter and the little gift, knowing that we're remembered and thought of and appreciated. I thought
And
both
I
of
do
those
have
were
some
nice.
extra ones of them if anybody would like them.
Well, now it would seem like that's what I was looking for.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, I thought that was really nice. I appreciate the monthly updates.
Well, I certainly appreciate that because, you know, there's times that the mayor gets hit with everything and just a few nice gestures really makes it worth our time. So I just want to thank everyone, the board, my staff. I don't know what I'd do without you. You guys are good. You helped me through a lot of stuff. And I think we've worked together really well. So I just want to again thank everyone for their kindness through this last month. It's been a hard one, it still is. I lost my son and my nephew. Vaughn lost his father. Scott lost his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law. This all happened to us all in December. So it's been a pretty rough month for us all. We just want to say thank you to the community for their support. If we haven't been on the ball, you'll understand we're still grieving. So, but I want to thank you for your support and coming out. It's been really good. So thank you.
It was a good discussion tonight.
Yes, we did. A lot of good discussion tonight, and that's going to help us. That's going to help us decide what needs to be done and how to do it and how fast to move with it. So, with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
I think I do it every month.
Vaughn made a motion to adjourn,
It's the best one.
and Jim seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming out
Jeremy.
tonight.
Thinking
of how close they got when you said
Recognized you behind the mask.
Didn't you?
I didn't, I was looking, I said, who is that guy?
I lost some glasses too. I went and had LASIK done last month, so.
Okay.
Oh, Lacey, see, I got cataract done the last 2 months, so.
Really?
I'm just seeing everything.
It's still a little blurry to me. I'm still healing,
That
so.
would be, that would be.
Sir, Darrell, are you getting
The little white house that would be on the west side there by,
Okay, I need to go.
before you get along.